Welcome to our channel. Today, we delve into a question that resonates deeply with many of us. Why do we overthink even the smallest things? Have you ever caught yourself ruminating endlessly over a trivial comment or revisiting a minor decision repeatedly? If so, you are far from alone. Overthinking is a pervasive mental pattern that can infiltrate our lives, compromise our clarity, and erode our well-being. But what lies beneath this habit? And how can we begin to regain control over our minds? Let's examine the roots and impact of overthinking and explore strategies to cultivate a calmer, more balanced inner world. At its core, overthinking often stems from an emotional trigger, typically anxiety, fear, or uncertainty. When we deeply care about an outcome or anticipate a future event, our mind instinctively seeks to prepare, to forecast, and to shield us from potential harm. While this cognitive vigilance is natural, it can easily escalate into an unproductive mental loop. Instead of arriving at resolution, we spiral into doubt, second-guessing every thought or action. Ironically, this mental overexertion often hinders, rather than helps, our ability to make clear and confident decisions. Fear, particularly the fear of failure or rejection, is one of the most common catalysts of overthinking. When faced with choices or evaluations, our minds may default to worst-case scenarios as a misguided attempt to protect us. We imagine being misunderstood, failing publicly, or regretting a misstep. This fear-induced hyperanalysis can result in decision paralysis and a chronic state of unease. The brain's protective instinct, when overactivated, leads us to rehearse endless what-if situations, often at the expense of our peace and productivity. Perfectionism is another significant driver of overthinking. When individuals hold themselves to unrealistically high standards, they become fixated on precision, correctness, and approval. Every word, action, or plan is dissected repeatedly in search of the unattainable, flawlessness. This excessive scrutiny not only consumes valuable time and energy, but it also fosters self-doubt and inhibits creative expression. Instead of moving forward with confidence, perfectionists often remain trapped in a cycle of endless revisions, unable to accept that good enough is often more than sufficient. Low self-esteem also plays a critical role. When we lack confidence in our own judgment, we hesitate to trust our instincts. We may seek constant validation from others or replay interactions to evaluate how we were perceived. This lack of internal assurance fuels a relentless need for external approval, which reinforces the habit of overthinking. Our minds become battlegrounds of self-criticism, and we become overly concerned with how others interpret our behavior, words, or intentions. In the digital age, social comparison has intensified the tendency to overthink. Constant exposure to curated images and idealized lifestyles on social media platforms can distort our perception of reality. We may internalize the belief that others are living more meaningful, exciting, or successful lives. This perceived gap between our real selves and others' projected images often leads to self-questioning and hyperanalysis. We scrutinize our own decisions, appearance, and achievements, wondering whether we measure up. This mental noise feeds into the broader pattern of cognitive overdrive. Past experiences and upbringing can also influence our inclination to overthink. Individuals raised in environments where mistakes were harshly punished or emotional expression was discouraged may have learned to anticipate criticism and suppress spontaneity. As a result, they develop a tendency to over-evaluate their words and actions, fearing potential consequences. This learned hypervigilance, once useful for survival, becomes maladaptive in adulthood, perpetuating a cycle of overthinking that undermines confidence and authenticity. Furthermore, there exists a common misconception that extensive thinking equates to responsibility or intelligence. In reality, overthinking often masquerades as productivity but yields very little actionable insight. Many life situations are ambiguous and require intuitive judgment rather than exhaustive analysis. Yet, the belief that one must mentally rehearse every detail before acting reinforces the habit. This over-reliance on cerebral control detaches us from our emotional intelligence and intuition, both of which are essential for balanced decision-making. The psychological consequences of chronic overthinking are profound. It can lead to heightened anxiety, chronic stress, indecisiveness, and eventually emotional burnout. Overthinking disrupts sleep, diminishes concentration, and impairs interpersonal relationships. It prevents us from being present, as our minds are continually hijacked by hypothetical futures or regrettable pasts. Over time, this cognitive fatigue can erode our mental health, leaving us feeling depleted, frustrated, and disconnected. Breaking free from the cycle of overthinking requires both self-awareness and deliberate practice. The first step is recognizing when our thoughts are no longer serving us. Are we problem-solving, or are we catastrophizing? Are we reflecting, or are we ruminating? Developing the ability to pause and interrogate our thought patterns helps us reframe our mental narrative. Mindful awareness allows us to observe our thoughts without becoming entangled in them, creating space for more constructive and compassionate responses. Journaling is a particularly effective tool for managing overthinking. When we write down our thoughts, we externalize the mental clutter and make abstract worries more tangible. This process helps us identify cognitive distortions, track recurring themes, and challenge irrational beliefs. Over time, journaling fosters clarity and self-understanding, empowering us to respond to challenges with greater resilience and emotional regulation. Another essential strategy is cultivating self-compassion. Overthinkers often hold themselves to harsh standards and engage in critical self-talk. By practicing kindness toward ourselves, acknowledging our efforts, accepting imperfections, and forgiving mistakes, we reduce the fear that fuels excessive analysis. Self-compassion shifts our internal dialogue from judgment to support, creating a more nurturing mental environment. Establishing boundaries with our thoughts is equally important. While we may not control the initial arrival of a thought, we can choose how much attention and time we give it. Setting mental time limits, such as allowing ourselves 10 minutes to consider a situation before moving on, helps prevent endless rumination. Techniques such as deep breathing, grounding exercises, or physical movement can redirect our focus and restore equilibrium. Mindfulness and meditation are transformative practices that rewire our relationship with thought. These disciplines teach us to anchor our awareness in the present moment and disengage from the incessant pull of mental chatter. With consistent practice, we become more attuned to our inner state and less reactive to intrusive thoughts. Mindfulness fosters acceptance, patience, and clarity, qualities that counterbalance the chaos of overthinking. Taking decisive action, even in small increments, can also interrupt the overthinking cycle. Often, the longer we wait, the more our fears grow. By acting despite uncertainty, we build self-trust and gather real-world feedback. Action generates momentum, dispels doubt, and reinforces the idea that we can navigate outcomes without exhaustive planning. Confidence, after all, is not the absence of doubt, but the willingness to move forward in spite of it. Finally, seeking support can be incredibly beneficial. Sharing our thoughts with someone we trust, whether a friend, coach, or a therapist, provides perspective and emotional relief. Others can help us identify blind spots, validate our experiences, and remind us of our strengths. Human connection breaks the isolation that overthinking often creates, and it grounds us in the reality that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. In conclusion, overthinking is a complex and deeply human experience. While it may arise from our desire to do well, stay safe, or make the right choices, it often leads us away from clarity and peace. Understanding its roots, emotional, cognitive, and social, empowers us to respond with wisdom rather than worry. With mindfulness, compassion, and courage, we can begin to untangle ourselves from the grip of overthinking and reclaim our mental freedom. Thank you for spending this time with us. We hope this reflection has brought insight, relief, and encouragement. You are not alone in your struggles, and you are capable of creating a quieter, kinder inner world. Be patient with yourself. Trust the process. And remember, your thoughts are not your enemy. They're just signals guiding you back to awareness and growth.